The Shadows Between US Part 1 Extended. In the dusty, bustling streets of Nairobi, where the scent of roasted maize mingled with the hum of mototus, two little girls were carving their names into destiny. Amani and Zawadi were not just best friends. They were a force of nature, a storm wrapped in laughter, a whisper of mischief running barefoot through the narrow alleys. People often mistook them for sisters, and who could blame them? They spoke in the same rhythm, finished each other's sentences, and fought like lion cubs only to be found minutes later, giggling in a tight embrace. One time, when they were 7, Amani dared Zawadi to steal chapatis from her mother's kitchen. Just one, she whispered, her eyes gleaming with mischief. But Zawadi, ever the perfectionist, took 4. They hid in an old Moboti shed, munching away, their bellies swelling with stolen delight, until Amani's mother stormed in, mwiko in hand. The chase that followed was legendary. Another time, during a heavy storm, they built a tiny mud house under the old acacia tree in Amani's backyard. As raindrops drummed on the tin roofs around them, Amani declared, "One day, we will live in a house like this." Zawadi, with mud on her nose, laughed, "And we will be rich, and we will never leave each other," Amani added, holding out her pinky finger. Zawadi linked hers without hesitation. "Never. But promises made in childhood are like footprints in the sand, beautiful, yet vulnerable to the tides of time." They walked to school together, their tiny feet kicking up dust as they argued about which teacher smelled like boiled eggs. In high school, they were the queens of the debate club. When Amani spoke, her words cut like a blade. When Zawadi followed, she softened the wounds with her charm. They were feared, respected, admired. But teenage years came with whispers of love. Amani was the first to get a love letter, a scribbled note tucked inside her locker. Zawadi, horrified by the grammatical errors, edited it before handing it back. "We have standards," she said, tossing her braids over her shoulder. University came with freedom, with endless nights of laughter, stolen bottles of wine, and new dreams. But it also came with distractions. And one of those distractions had a name. It happened on a rainy evening. Amani had spent too long in the library, lost in the pages of a book. When she stepped outside, the sky had cracked open, pouring its sorrow onto the world. She cursed under her breath. Her umbrella was at home, and the hostel was too far. That's when she saw him. Kimani. He stood by his sleek, black car, the kind that purred like a satisfied cat. He was tall, his suit hugging his frame like it was tailored by the gods themselves. His watch gleamed in the dim light, but it was his eyes dark, knowing, full of stories that caught her breath. "Need a ride." His voice was warm, smooth, a song that didn't need a melody. Amani hesitated. Her mother had warned her about charming men with expensive cars. But the rain was merciless, and his smile was dangerously inviting. She got in. That car ride felt like magic. They talked like old souls, like they had known each other in another life. He listened, really listened. Not just nodding, not just waiting for his turn to speak. And when he laughed, it wasn't just sound, it was music, deep and rich, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. By the time he dropped her off, something had shifted. Days turned into weeks. Kimani became more than a name. He became a constant. He called every morning, sent flowers just because, and remembered things Amani didn't even remember saying. One evening, with a giddy heart, she introduced him to Zawadi. Zawadi liked him instantly. He was kind, respectful, intelligent. But more importantly, he made Amani glow. And that was enough for her. Months passed. One night, under a sky littered with shy stars, Kimani took Amani's hands. "I think I've loved you since that first rainy night," he whispered. Amani's heart did a foolish, happy dance. She told Zawadi first. They celebrated with roasted maize and warm soda, sitting on their tiny balcony, dreaming about the future. "I told you," Amani teased. "One day, we will be rich." Zawadi grinned. And we will never leave each other. But promises are fragile things. Kimani's career soared, and soon, he was no longer just a man, he was a man with a plan. He was ready. Ready for a home, ready for a family. When he told Amani he wanted to marry her, her heart nearly burst. The ratio was grand. Elders gathered, negotiations were made, laughter filled the air. Zawadi stood beside Amani, watching her best friend step into a new world. But one person was missing, Mama Zawadi. Nobody questioned it. Amani, out of love and respect, decided to visit her the next morning. She knocked on the wooden door, expecting warmth, expecting the usual big hug and playful insults. Instead, Mama Zawadi stood there, stiff, her eyes dark and unreadable. "You're here," she said flatly. Amani hesitated. Something was off. "Yes, Mama, I wanted to see you." The woman stepped aside without a word. Amani sat, trying to ignore the thick, suffocating tension in the air. "How is Zawadi?" she asked, forcing a smile. "She is fine." The response was clipped, distant. Amani's stomach twisted. This was not the woman who had once fed her, scolded her, laughed with her. She left soon after, disturbed but unsure why. What she didn't know was that her presence had ignited something dark in Mama Zawadi's heart. That evening, Mama Zawadi waited for her daughter. Her hands trembled, her lips pursed in fury. Zawadi arrived, unsuspecting. She came, her mother spat. "Do. Your so-called best friend." Zawadi frowned. "Amani." "Yes, she came here to boast, to show off, to remind you that she has a man, a future, while you have nothing." Zawadi shook her head. "No, Mama, that's not Amani." "Oh, my daughter." Mama Zawadi placed a trembling hand on Zawadi's shoulder, her voice low and venomous. "You are blind. She has left you behind. She will forget you, and you will be alone." A seed of doubt was planted, and Mama Zawadi watered it with more lies. By the time she was done, Zawadi's heart was burning with anger, betrayal, and a darkness she had never known before. Mama Zawadi smiled to herself. This was only the beginning. To be continued. Subscribe to the channel for more.